Sway in the morning, Shade 45. Soswin Benjamin, he'll be there tonight in Harlem. Connects. Hashtag Connects. Find out where we're going to be at. I'll be a keynote speaker. So this has been a topic of conversation we've been having for years. R. Kelly and the lifestyle that has been alleged, that has been reported, that he's been put on trial for throughout his career. And there was a story that Tracy brought up about a fellow radio colleague, Kitti Jones, out of Dallas, who actually did an interview with Rolling Stone magazine, and she spoke about her relationship with R. Kelly from the years 2011 to 2013. Tracy did the work and was able to find Kitti Jones to have her on our show today.
Yes.
So I want to welcome her to the show.
Yes.
Kitti Jones, good morning. How are you doing?
Good morning, Kitti.
Good morning.
Is this
I'm
Kitti?
doing okay.
You're doing okay?
Okay. And we also have Kitty's lawyer on the line as well, Shay, yes?
Yes, I'm here.
So, Kitti, thank you very much for making time. We know that probably all of your social media has been going crazy ever since you did pretty much this expose and spoke your truth to Rolling Stone about these allegations of physical, verbal, and sexual abuse over the span of 2 years. I read this entirely, and I was highly affected by this, not only as a woman, but also as someone who listened to a lot of R. Kelly's music for quite a long time. So again, thank you so much for being on the line, Kitti.
Thank you for having me.
Now, here is a couple questions for you, Kitti. Well, first of all, since you've been able to speak so much of your truth and obviously on a public platform, how has the response been? What have you been receiving from other people's opinions, and how has it been making you feel? Is this like an exhale for you? Is it a show of relief, or are you almost feeling like maybe I should not have said anything?
I can tell you that about 95% of the feedback has been positive, and I did prepare myself for this. I mean, like he announced, I did radio before, so I kind of was one of those people that would have to report on news and the tea that's out there and the trending topics. So I would kind of see reactions that women would get when they would talk about, you know, their experiences with celebrities or breakups. And I knew, you know, certain ways that people react or the backlash that comes with it, it would cause a person to not want to keep talking about it. And it allows that person to be a little bit more arrogant about how they move because they know they have a fan base, or they know, you know, that person's going to automatically be attacked and being accused of being a gold digger or someone wanting fame. So if you're not really prepared for that mentally, and that you've never been in the spotlight, that can scare a person and make them say, "Oh my God, I don't want this," and you just disappear, and then it just makes that person have legs. Like literally, they can keep doing it because they know that nobody will believe you. So I sat on it for 3 years because, you know, there was a lot of shame that I was dealing with. Extreme embarrassment because I did leave a career that I worked very hard for, and I just felt like I didn't have anything to go back to. It just kept playing in my head, you know, who am I when I leave here? You know, what use am I, you know, and how can I explain this to everybody? I can either, you know, fake it or I can talk about it, but then there'll be a lot of backlash. So I wasn't ready for that part. I wasn't ready for the backlash. But at this point, you know, with, you know, other people that have been coming out, well, I'll just take it back a little bit, and this is clearly in a Rolling Stone article. I was just trying to live a quiet life and have a regular job where people didn't even recognize me. You know, that, you know, if you start at the top and you're this radio person and people know who you are in your community, and you don't have that anymore, you know, you come back and you try to live regular and you go and pick up a job somewhere where you hope no one recognizes you. So I was trying to live that type of life until I started getting people contacting me around December and, letting me know what was going on in the house currently and how they were worried about their daughters. And at first I didn't want to be involved because I didn't know how they found me because, like I said, I've been under the radar, not even using my real name on social media. I completely, I knew people kind of knew me from, just connected me to that, like my old radio colleagues, the people that, listened to me, or they saw one of his tours where I was a part of the tour.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't want people seeking me out over the last 3 years or so. So I could say I was kind of in hiding. I haven't been living a life at all, clubbing, doing anything to be seen because of the shame. So what prompted me to talk was just, people reaching out to me and saying, hey, this is what's happening to my daughter. I heard you were someone that actually got away from it, and we just need your help. And I was thinking, how can I help you? I was defensive. And after a couple of conversations, I just broke down, and it was a photo that one of the parents showed me about, what her daughter looked like before she had met him, and a photo that she saw of her daughter after she met him. And I saw myself in that photo.
Mm-hmm.
And it broke my heart. And that was the beginning of me kind of taking control over my past and what happened to him. This was around December of last year.
And Kitti, when you first met R. Kelly, you were 33 years of age? Or how old were you?
I was in my 30s.
Okay.
Yes.
So I just want to put in context that you're not just a fan of R. Kelly. You're somebody who's worked in the music business. You have previously been married, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. You have a child too, correct?
Yes, I do. I was
Okay.
married, and I was divorced.
Mm-hmm.
And what people are, I think people are trying to pounce on, different parts to kind of take different angles with it, just to kind of diminish my story. I just wanted to clear up, people thinking, oh, she left her son. But if they had clearly read the article, it is stated there that my son had the privileges of growing up in Europe and, traveling abroad and learning all these languages. And, while we were married, before even getting a divorce or deciding to do that, my son was living there. So, when I was making decisions in radio and traveling at that time, and even moving to be with R. Kelly, my son was still, in Milan. And
Mm-hmm.
then around the time that I decided to come back, that's when my son was already back in Texas. So, I think people just want to pounce on something to just say, oh, she was a bad mom, or she did this and that, just to run after this guy. And you have to realize, I was already meeting celebrities. I was already meeting, interviewing, just like you guys do on a daily basis. I wasn't moved by that. It wasn't oh, my God, I'm meeting R. Kelly and in this groupie thing. I was always professional. There aren't any other celebrities that are like, oh, I went to the beat and I used to fool with her. You won't hear stories like that because I was married most of the time. I was on that radio station, and in the time frame that I wasn't married, I was engaged to somebody, and then I had a window where I was single, and that was leading up to me meeting him. So, and I think I got a couple of questions about, why him, and I'm like, I didn't run after him. It's the same story if you're in a grocery store and a guy approaches you and they court you and they draw you in. It's the same story. It's just he's R. Kelly.
Right.
So,
Kitti, let's hit on the subject of manipulation for a bit, because for anyone who didn't read the story of Rolling Stone, it starts off you were a big fan of R. Kelly. I mean, hell, everyone was a huge fan of R. Kelly. And I know also listening to his music was an escape from a bad relationship that your mother was in when she was younger. So I'm always interested in taking a tour of the psychology that leads to abusive incidents like this. Now, I know in Texas in 2011, when you had missed a show, but the radio station was having an after party and you were able to meet him, and when you first had a quick conversation and you guys shook hands and he gave you his number, when you texted him, and I read this, and there was a typo in the text that he sent you, but it appeared the way that I deciphered it, that he was saying to send pic. And that was when he first introduced you to his pseudonym, Daddy. What were the next conversations like?
Correct.
For that people to understand that there's a grooming that continues, because you guys had spoken for 2 months before you ever saw each other in the flesh. What were the conversations like in those first 2 months?
The conversations were more about trying to get me to, I guess, whatever town he was in at the time. But, I was really dedicated to work, so I couldn't just say, oh, let me go and follow him this weekend. I had things to do. I had remotes. I had appearances. But it was him asking for photos. There was a 3-week period where I didn't hear from him because he had throat surgery sometime in July, and I got really worried about it, and I had happened to run across an article that said that he was canceling the last part of his Love Letter tour at the time, and it was due to throat surgery. And then that's when it dawned on me, wow, I hadn't heard from him in 3 weeks, and I texted him, and I asked if he was okay, and then he called me, and he was, like, whispering, and he was like, Daddy's healing, and I'd like to, see you really soon, and I'm going to be going to Denver, and I'm going to have one of my guys call you so you can set up coming to see me. So leading up to going to see him in Denver, it was, sending racy pics back and forth.
What's racy pics? Can you, y'all was sending nude pics, nude photos? When you say racy?
He was obsessed with, he's very specific about the type of photos he wants. For me, he was obsessed with, can I say ass on the radio?
You can say whatever you like, Kitti.
He was obsessed with the shape of...
He wanted ass
I didn't know
pics.
what type of rules you guys had.
Okay, no, that's Sirius XM. It's uncensored. You can say what we want you to be comfortable and say whatever happened, because we all read the story, and
I understand.
and it's unfortunate that a lot of people, when they come out and they've come out with a story of assault, sexual assault, that a lot of folks start questioning the woman,
right?
And so we decided, why don't we have a woman on the show and break down what actually happened, especially with someone like R. Kelly that we all know, follow this music and the whole nine. But these stories keep coming to the surface. So in order to just get clarity on it, you're the first person that's actually agreed to talk with us, And so when the little things happen, people question. For example, he handed you the number at the meet and greet in your hand and asked you to text him later, right? Somebody might question, well, what part of being professional would that be if you're working in a radio station? That's actually against the rules.
That's true. That's the reason, the 5 years that I worked there, I knew those things. If I don't know if he even remembers this or if he'll ever hear it, but I believe it was around, I'm not even going to say the celebrity, but it was several different ones that would come through the station, and they would invite me to strip clubs and places that they were going to be. And, hey, do you want to go to dinner? Or do you want to come? We're going to do this. I've never was like into drinking and, smoking, or I don't like the smell of cigarettes or any of that. I was married through my whole 20s, so I was kind of like not, familiar with, just some of the fast lane stuff, if you will. I guess, I'm not trying to paint myself as naive at all, but, if you're married for 10 years and you're kind of not out there on the dating scene, and then all of a sudden you are a little vulnerable, as far as what to expect or what a guy might want from you. For a long time, and this is really true, and I have people that know this, you meet a guy and you think everything's cool. If they're like, yeah, I want to chill. And then you're thinking, okay, cool. To me, that's let's go eat. Let's go to dinner. But I didn't know that means, oh, let me come over to your house and we chill and then see where it goes from there. I didn't know that was, it just took me a while to just kind of get in the game
I get that.
Around
you were out of practice, Kitti.
Right.
And I always tell people,
And R. Kelly was the coach.
Yeah, you hadn't been in a circle. I want to come back, and I really appreciate you coming on our airwaves and your attorney. And I want to come back and list, a lot of folks haven't read the Rolling Stone article, but it goes into detail and just talk about some of the points of the story and what it is why you wanted the public to know what was going on even in more detail. And we got a lot of listeners, 888-742-3345, but we're going to talk directly with you. Kitti Jones is on the line. Sway in the Morning, Shade 45. Sway in the Morning, Shade 45. Got a special guest on the line with us right now. Appreciate her even taking the time out to have this conversation. Kitti Jones was recently in a Rolling Stone article about
Absolutely. Citizens, we've been reporting about it on Celebrity Wire. This is a former Dallas radio DJ. And she basically laid it all out in a Rolling Stone expose where she spoke about coming forward with allegations of physical, verbal, sexual, emotional abuse from R. Kelly, going into every single sordid detail. We know that they were together in this type of tempestuous relationship for 2 years. Kitti met him in 2011. It continued until 2013. And part of what we're learning is what were the first steps in the grooming process, so it seems, with Kitti having received his number while they were at an after party for one of his tours. And one of the first things that I read, and I was shocked, Kitti, was after 2 months of only speaking to this man and not having seen his face. And when you met him inside, I believe it was a hotel room, please correct me if I'm wrong, he immediately walked in, Heather, did not embrace after not seeing this woman, but sat down on the couch, pulled out his penis and began to masturbate. And at this point, from what I read, Kitti had said how she felt uncomfortable, but this is a good-looking man. This is somewhat of a demigod because this is R. Kelly,
right?
Not Robert Kelly. So she was persuaded to perform oral sex.
And then, so Kitti, for me at this point, how you doing, by the way? How do you, with all of these things happening at that point,
I'm fine.
What makes you say, okay, I'm going to leave my job and leave my home and then move in with him with all of the extra things begin to happen?
It took about 4.5 months before I even decided to make that move. I just want to go back to the hotel part real quick, if you guys don't mind. It was bizarre, and it was happening really fast. And think about the time frame before I saw him, which was 2 months. He was courting me. We were talking on the phone. He was sending me flowers and gifts, and making me feel like, okay, this is worth hanging in there. We're gonna see each other.
But what did he?
I couldn't come off work, and I didn't have that.
Kitti, what was the conversation about? Was it? What did when you say y'all talked on the phone? Did y'all talk about family? Huh? When you talked about on the phone, were y'all talking about family?
No, we weren't talking about family per se. It was just more about making time to see each other. Him mentioning me possibly coming to Africa with him. I believe it was September of that year. He was just talking about things that he would like for me to know about him. It's going to take some time. Conversations like that. They weren't very long conversations. A lot of it, I noticed he wasn't really a texter. And the reason the word sin was felt like that specifically in Rolling Stone is because that's the way he spelt it. So I don't think they mentioned this, but he did have a very hard time reading and writing. So he would voice, if he was to text, he would voice it into the phone or have you type it out for him. So if you did send him something in a text, he would, call you and just say, what were you saying? And I didn't pick up on that, like I said, until I actually started living with him, and I realized, okay, he does have a hard time with that. And then he opened up to me about some personal things. But I wanted to tell Heather that it did take 4 months before I actually left, and this was because we had started, getting closer, and him confiding in me about some things that happened to him in his childhood. And I remember one incident where I guess I can bring this up because I think he even wrote it in his book, but it was about him being molested. And that was the beginning stages of him working on, I guess, making me feel, I don't want to say sorry for him. I'm not sure what word I'm searching for, but it started working on my
psyche.
I wanted to defend him.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so he would say, crazy things to me like, oh, are you flying to Chicago to get peed on? Or if he would come up in the news about maybe a foreclosure or something like that, like I would be furious. Like I began to be very defensive because I started learning all these things about him that he was sharing with me, and he made me think he had never told these things to anybody else. So I was like, wow, he trusts me. And, you start thinking, wow, if people knew these things about him, they wouldn't be attacking him like so easily and thinking things are funny or bringing up Dave Chappelle all the time. So I started feeling, I was just drawn in and sucked in. And I was like, man, I feel like I have to defend him, and I get it now. So,
yeah. So you referring to the Dave Chappelle? Are you referring to, Kitti? I'm sorry, the Dave Chappelle, because you mentioned Dave Chappelle. You mean the Dave Chappelle skit that he did on his show?
Yeah, I mean, you constantly will hear people like refer to that. Like,
okay,
if you're not like a '90s person that grew up in the '90s, and you just became an adult in the 2000s, that's all you know about.
Right, I see. Okay,
you don't remember that he's a legend in the '90s. So yeah.
Kitti,
So,
when you said the word, I don't mean to cut you off, but when you said the word peed, it instantly brought me to the imagery you painted in the Rolling Stone story, where fast forward, now you're being forced to partake in sexual acts with his other quote unquote girlfriends, to the point where you and 2 other women were having sex with him, and he pissed on 2 of the other women and forced one to clean it up. And another incident you painted a picture of where you were forced to perform oral sex on a woman and you vomited afterwards. What were the roles of these girlfriends? Like, did someone have to be the cook and the other person was polishing his shoes? Like, I know you guys couldn't speak to each other. And what is his reaction after you vomit? Is there any sort of, did his eyes change where he maybe felt bad at some point?
No. I don't know which one you want me to tackle first, but I'll talk about the vomiting, and he'll just tell you to go, go ahead. I know in that particular incident, he just told me to go ahead and get out. Just like that. I remember another incident where there was a threesome he was setting up, and he was setting up a camera in the corner, and I was shaking really bad this particular day, and there was a girl, and I was just laying there like, wanting to get it over with, when he was on top of me, and then we just made eye contact, and then he just said, get out. Like, nothing makes him feel like, oh, this girl doesn't want to do this. It doesn't register. I just think, I can't explain it. I mean, I just think it's just like something that takes over him. Like, he doesn't have a conscience at all. There were frequent occurrences of him just waking me up out of my sleep and wanting oral sex. I mean, imagine you're in a deep sleep and someone taps you, and then, that's what they want you to do to them, and it's already pulled out. They're standing over you like that.
Wow.
Can you
those are the.
Can you explain to the listeners when they're hearing these stories, why couldn't you just get out? Why didn't you? There's a reason why you didn't just walk out the house.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason why you didn't leave all of this and go, man, this shit is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Why didn't you just get out?
All I could keep thinking was, what use am I when I walk out of here? What am I going to go back to? I gave up everything. I took a risk. Somebody that I was completely immersed in love with, over the moon, and I felt that he felt that about me. And I just and again, if that's all you're around all the time, you're not communicating with your friends. If you do, if he's sitting right there, so you're not really like, able to get away like on a regular everyday woman can call her friend and say, "Girl, let me tell you what this fool was doing today," or whatever, and you can kind of get your mind away from that person and get feedback from other people and love and start feeling that. But if that's all you're around 24/7 and this person knows your every move,
Mm-hmm.
You start feeling like that's all you have. All you have.
So, Kitti, what was the final straw? How did you leave, or quote unquote get out? Did he put you out? Did you run away? Like, how did you leave?
I left because I made up, well, it was kind of true, but my son was back from Italy and he was starting high school, and I told him that I did want to get, help my son, with the beginning stages of that and go shopping. And he did give me a ticket, and mind you, I think I was starting day 3 of not eating when this happened. And you start being delirious if you don't have something to eat. Like some people, they're really edgy, and just imagine if you're on the second day and all you've had is water.
Yeah, that's how he would punish
you go
her.
Urinate. I'm sorry?
Heather, that's how he would punish the girl
Hello?
sometimes.
Oh, so you were being punished. Not being served food is a form of punishment to keep you skinny? I don't understand the no food.
It was either, sometimes you'll have options. He would, you're either going to get beat up or you're going to be starved. You won't have your phone. And again, like, I don't know if you read the whole thing, but you do have to ask for food. You do have to ask to go to the bathroom. So basically, if I text one of the assistants or runners and say, "Hey, this is my food order for the day," an hour goes by and he doesn't respond and say, "Okay, Mr. Kelly said it's fine," and then they'll, on a tray or put your food next to the door and you open the door and grab your food. It was like that. It's not like you're freely walking around and you're going to go in the kitchen and make yourself something to eat. You're asking, people on the staff that he, actually assigned to, that's the one person that you can text. You can't call and talk to the runner and say, "Hey, will you bring me some food?" or "This is what I need from the grocery store." You text your orders of what you need, your personal items, because you're not always able to go to the store and get your own stuff. And then if he doesn't respond, that's how you know you're on punishment for something that you probably won't find out about until after it's over with. He'll come in the room or call your phone and say, "Come out here, I got to talk to you." And then you just get berated about yesterday when, I walked in the room, you didn't stand up, or you were talking about yourself too much, or you didn't act interested in, the song I was recording. Or, I remember an incident where, I don't know if I want to bring that up, but it was a producer in Atlanta that he was on the phone with, and they were talking about a name of a song or some kind of collabo that they were doing. And then when they hung up the phone, or before they hung the phone up with each other, he said Fahrenheit 1, and I guess that was the way that they would hang up every time they would end the conversation. And so I when we were talking about the song idea in the studio, because I would sit in with him when he would be creative and, freestyle certain songs and albums. And I said, "I think Fahrenheit 1 is a good idea." And he said, "Where did you pick that up at? Why are you acting like it's your idea?" And then he just started, hauling off and slapping me over that. And then I didn't see him for like a couple of days. I didn't eat for a couple of days. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I reminded him that I just heard him say that to somebody, but he was upset that there were other people in the room and I made it sound like it was my idea. And I said, no, I literally did hear you say that, and I was just reminding you that that was a good idea, but he just wasn't listening. It was simple things like that would just set him off.
So
and it was just over the top.
A lot of folks,
and again, a lot of people like.
Okay, so we try to.
I'm sorry.
I apologize too, and I just the common question that comes to mind is obviously this ordeal you went through was fucked up. Okay,
Yes.
He hasn't spoken out about it. You're in your 30s, and you, even though you were out of practice, you have been around the music business, and you spilled the tea, so to speak. You know how the music business works. And initially, I could see, you don't know what you're getting into. He is who he is.
Correct.
And he is courting you. I mean, I probably, if I was a woman attracted to him, I get that part too. But when the abuse started coming in, and you realize I'm in this abnormal situation with other women, and he's forcing me to do things that is out of my character, that's against I'm assuming, integrity and morals, and you continue to do so, what do you say to the person that says, hold up, at this point, you're not the victim. How come you just didn't run away? How come at your age you didn't make the decision? Then I got to stop this. This is crazy. I love the guy. I got to stop this. This is dangerous.
And Kitti, is it more acceptable because of who he is? Because if this was the average KK on the street, do you stay in a home with KK while he got other chicks not feeding you, beating you, and talking to you like you're an animal?
Right.
Well, most people aren't going to give up their whole life, for the average KK on the street. I think, people are obsessed with, how old I may have been or whatever, but he's simply a predator, and, the abuse can happen to anyone at any age, by this person. So, and I take people back, and I just want you to understand, like, I gave up a lot of things based on the connection that we had and the promises that he made with doubling my salary. And again, he did try to make up for it by including me on the tour and somewhat paying me for that. And it was the shame and embarrassment. If I had I was actually there 3 weeks in November before he actually put his hands on me for the first time, and imagine if you gave everything up, the beginning of November, and then by the end of November, that's the first incident where, this person abused you, and you've only been there 3 weeks, and you just gave up your condo, your Mercedes, your career at the radio station, and people are thinking, oh, she's about to do, they're looking at it as, okay, she's upgrading a little bit. She's going to go and double her salary and do this and do that. Plus, on top of that, that's her boyfriend. So how can I explain this after being there 3 weeks?
You were in danger. You could have, I feel like I'm in danger. I had to leave that situation. He's slapping me. He's abusing me.
But I wasn't. I understand.
It's hard. I mean, I'm not.
The narrative and what happened.
And I'm not.
Right, but I'm trying to take people. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't want you to feel like I'm just, I know, because we feel bad for what happens.
And just trying to understand.
Like, I want folks to understand what goes on in a person's mind. There's a reason. When I was saying there's a reason you stay.
Right.
There's something else going on that will make you. We need to identify that.
Right. What I'm saying is, yes, he was definitely working on me mentally. Like I said, I had already felt like I had learned some secrets about him, and there were things that made me feel like, oh, my God, he's not. I want him to know that I'm loyal. He used to explain to me, how easy it was for people to set him up and how he would leave money, in a chair, and then when he come back in the room just to test people to see if they stole it or if they'll acknowledge, hey, you dropped $100. So all these little things that he would plant to test people's loyalty, I wanted him to know that, hey, I gave these things up because I trust you. And I just want to mention this real quick because I know you guys probably do have to go in a minute, but the first incident of him abusing me and, kicking me in the car after I saw the tape that he had to go to trial for, people think he just hauled off and started hitting me and, because I told him I saw the tape and asked him if it was him, and that's not exactly how it happened. About a week before I had saw the tape, he had introduced me to someone that looked very, very similar, I'm going to put it that way, to the person. I hadn't seen the tape, okay? Before I met him, I had never watched it. I had seen images, but I had never actually watched it. So when he introduced me to this person a week before, I was just like, okay, she looks familiar, and I brushed it off. Like, okay, you know how you feel like you saw somebody before.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, when a friend of mine brought it to my attention, hey, I was just wondering if you ever saw this before. I was infuriated about my friend because by this time I'm in love with this person. I'm protective over him. I don't want anybody making me feel bad for being in love with him and living with him. So when I got by myself in private, I looked it up and I watched it and I was in tears because, again, that person looks very, very similar to the person that I was introduced to a week before. I proceeded to call him and it was a mess. And then when I arrived at the airport, and that's, like I said, stated in the Rolling Stone because they left that part out, the backstory of it. When I got there, that's when he was, bitch, stay out of my fucking business, and so on. The way that I explained in Rolling Stone, and it was devastating to me. Mm-hmm. I felt bad because I was like, I don't want him to know. I want to prove to him that I'm not going to tell. Like, I don't want, like, at that moment, the look in his eyes, I knew, like, it was like an unsaid thing where it's like, okay, I kind of felt, it hit me that I think, Shay, can you help me with this? Because I don't want to, I think there was some guilt that I saw. And I'll just put it that way. And then it was like it never happened, like the next day or, and we never talked about it again. But that person kept coming around that I had seen. If you guys are following me here. And
you're saying the person that resembled the young lady that was in the video that he went to court for, trial for. That particular person kept coming around years later.
She's not saying that. She is saying that the person looks similar. Yeah. She cannot confirm that it is that person.
Yeah, that's what I said. The person that looks similar to. You're not saying it's that person, but the resemblance was uncanny to you enough where you questioned if it was that person or not. But you're not saying it was. You don't know for a fact that it's that person. I get it.
Kitti.
And then we got to say, too, for the record, that R. Kelly's...
Yeah, his representation, disputes the story, of course. But I'm wondering, in a utopian world for yourself, would you like to see R. Kelly in rehab? Would you like to see him behind bars? Would you like to see the public never play his music ever again?
I like to see him get help. And I just want to say that I felt like I was a part of someone that was like feeding a sickness and feeding him. Imagine if you have a family member that's, on drugs and, you don't want to see them on the street seeking the drugs. So you're just like, I'll go get it and I'll keep feeding it to him. I'd rather him do it right here where I can see it. Mm-hmm. I feel like every time I fed into any fantasy that he had, it was feeding a sickness that, he needed to deal with after learning about molestation and seeing that there were certain people around that he claimed he raised since they were 14 and 15. These are things that were coming out over time. I wasn't sleeping with the other women, the first year. This is something that he molded me into in the second year after we toured and training me, so to speak. So it wasn't immediate when I was doing those things, but I would like to see him, get help. I don't know about jail. I don't, I know that he does, singing his way out of things is his thing, and that's therapeutic for him. But I can't make people feel like I feel. That's totally up to everybody else if they still want to listen to him. But I can't. I can't listen to him anymore. Like, it's not the same for me. His voice scares me. I get anxiety when he's in the news. Before I was a part of it, afraid that my name could come up possibly, or somebody could say, he flew me in with this girl, and then they recognized me. I was always afraid of that, but, I just feel like at this point I'd like to see him get help.
And then also one of the reasons that I thought it would be important to hear your story is there are a lot of young girls who could be and young boys for that matter, who could be in similar situations and scared to speak out, and really probably sound like you were confused through the whole thing. Sound like it was a good time at first. Right. It had turned into a nightmare.
Yeah.
Real fast. And
yes, it did.
It sounded like you were so caught up that you couldn't really see it for what it was necessarily. And then you had sacrificed so much that
the shame.
You wanted to see it through. And then the deeper it got, this is just my assessment. The deeper, the deeper it got, the harder it was to let go, to the point where you found yourself going down on other women. Something you sound like you never done before, and participate in threesomes. It sound like you were being held hostage. Sound like it was like almost like a cult, or you were being pimped almost without.
Willie Dynamite.
Yeah, it sound like all these things were going on, and we see this happen across our country, and folks don't talk about it enough. Sounds like somebody, now obviously he's denying all of this. All these allegations, he's going to say, his attorney said it's not true.
Right.
But for those who are, that we can prove, are sexual people. We've seen sexual assault. All the sexual assault we've seen in the country now. I think it's important that you tell your story now, Kitti Jones, and whether people believe you or not, or say she doesn't have a right to play a victim. She was adult age and established, and she put herself in this situation. I don't think this is something that anybody would necessarily ask for. You know what I mean? And so that's why we wanted to have you on the air. It wasn't to say if you were right or wrong or any of that, or judge you or any of that. Just what's your story? We read this in Rolling Stone. Is this real? Tell us, give us that detail. And then hopefully people who are hearing this that are going through similar situations.
Or about to.
Right, preventative.
They could be empowered by your story. Do you work in entertainment still, or are you just in the private sector, or how are you getting along now?
Right now I'm just rebuilding my life, I'm in the early stages of, writing down my experiences and, just, where I am as far as like rebuilding and turning it into a book. And there are a lot of things that I wasn't able to share in a Rolling Stone, like I shared with you guys today. But it's been very therapeutic for me. I've also created, I call it SPY, and it stands for Stop Protecting Your Abuser. I felt like my silence, gave him a little bit of arrogance over time, and it allowed him to draw other people in, as you could see in the news over the last few months. And I felt some responsibility to, start talking about what happened to me, because, I feel like if I had done it earlier, it would have stopped him from thinking, okay, I can keep doing this because I know that I could pay people off. I know that I can, I know that enough backlash will keep these people quiet. And I just felt like, I'm being used because maybe I can handle it, and I am older, and I think I am strong enough to go ahead and be the person to step forward and say, this is what happened, and these are the exact details. And, Rolling Stone wouldn't have touched my story if I didn't have facts and proof and other people in the business to back it up, and old text messages that my old friends kept that I had no idea, and abuse photos that Rolling Stone wasn't able to, they couldn't fit these things in. But, it's very hard for him to say that I'm lying, but, I doubt if he's going to.
Well, it's not hard for him to say that. That's what they it's your side of the story, and then it's his side of the story.
Right.
You know, and
Right.
and that's the truth. You know how they say that. You know, but
sides to every story.
he's not gonna. Yeah, I would. You know, I don't see that happening. Kid, anything else you want to add? You want to say?
I think I covered, everything. I think a lot of people are fixated on why now, and she wants fame, she wants money, and those aren't focuses for me at all. I've never been motivated by that. I've always lived well. People, that actually know me know that that's not a problem for me in life, in my whole adult life, and I could care less about whether I get attention from anything that's easy to come by. I could have rushed to get on the radio when I got back and started talking about this, but those are things that I didn't care about. I wanted to heal first, and I'm still healing just with the story coming out. And I'm grateful that Rolling Stone, gave me that platform, and I've been affecting, many people, and they've been inboxing me and telling me, how it's kind of giving them a little bit of, clarity and perspective, and then kind of confronting things that they maybe were afraid to speak about before even reading my story. So constantly, I'm getting great feedback. And, like I said, there are going to be people that think you want to check, as they say, or something like that. And
they say a bag now.
At all. Rolling Stone didn't.
They say a bag now, Kitty.
And
okay. You're not going to do any reality shows?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
That's, that's not anything that I've been interested in. So I just wanted to get my story out there. I didn't want people to remix it, and I didn't want to be afraid of someone spraying me with my own tea, as they say.
Okay.
So if it was going to get out, the best person to hear it from was me, and I chose Rolling Stone to be the people to tell it for me the right way.
Lastly, how have you explained this to your son?
He's 19 now, and he's a very smart young man. And, naturally, when you have a son, I don't know if you're like a mama's boy or whatever, but, he's very supportive, but very, very overprotective, because he's learned the details. You kind of shield your family from most of it, but, I mean, he's overprotective after learning some of the detail, and but he's a strong kid, just like me. But now he kind of understands, the moments that I've been withdrawn over the last, couple of years. And we've had some talks, and he loves me to death. I mean, we're like brother and sister in some aspects because, I'm still vibrant and young, and we do all these things together, and people think I'm his girlfriend because he's taller than me. And, we have a really good relationship that it's never been damaged by any of this. But, I was a little worried about him learning, the actual detail. But, I mean, this is life, and I wouldn't want anybody to walk up to my son and say, hey, did you know this about your mom? So why not me just personally sit him down and say, this is what's going to happen, and this is what might happen because I'm talking about this. And he was prepared for it. Like I said, he's smart.
Okay.
So.
All right. Kitty Jones, thank you for being on the show. Tracy G, for finding Kitty Jones. I didn't think you were going to find Kitty Jones, but you found Kitty Jones. There. Okay. Kitty, thank you for sharing your story.
Yes.
And,
Thank you.
we
helped to answer some questions.
It helped to answer some questions.
And
I have to say, this is her side of the story.
Right.
R. Kelly has, as we said, disputed this entire thing, his camp, and says it's untrue. And we'll see how that manifests itself. The bigger picture for me is for young ladies who are out there who may be, and young boys who are out there or adult ladies or adult boys who may be having similar experiences that Kitty had. Listen to this story. It could save your life.
Watch for the patterns. And watch for the
patterns.
Yeah.
Kitty, thank you. What is your attorney's name?
Her name is Shay Lawson, and she's in Atlanta, but on the phone with us still.
Well, thank you. Thank
Ms.
you.
Lawson. Yeah,
Ms. Lawson, thank you
Yes.
for allowing this to happen as well.
Thank you for having us.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you, guys. Have a good day.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Sway in the Morning, Shay 45. That was an interesting conversation.
It's Sway in the Morning, only on Shade 45. Kilo.